So this expenses that you see here, this
Yeah.
is for the admin person. Okay, so what the admin person can do, he can go to auditing and he can check for existing reports, expense reports that are there. So manage expense reports and audit list, cash advances. This is all managing and this is processing.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's do something. Let's try and do a proper expense report. So I will sign out first. I will log in as an employee. Let's say I log in as Casey Brown. And you first will be logging, will be going as an employee and will be entering the expense. Okay. So for that, under this me, you will get the option for the expenses. Expenses. Okay.
Yeah.
So when we click on expenses, we are taken to the page for entering expenses as an employee. Okay. It is under me. So first, this is like your dashboard kind of thing. What you want to do? Do you want to create a report? This is already a report that was not submitted. Visit to Mexico office, or for training. So let's try and update this and submit it. So if you look at the report, there is a purpose here. There are no attachments. Payment method. What is the total? $907. Expense items, breakfast, $25, dinner, 42, airfare, 360, hotel, 480. After this is done, you can then submit it. Okay. Or if you want to add more items, let's say car rental. So where was the expense? We can say he went to Mexico. So we can say Mexico or Mexico City. Okay. So you can either put it as like number of days was let's say 2 days. So for 2 days it's 255. So per day it's $127. So once this is done, we submit it. So it says pending approval, and it has gone to Anita Kennedy. So if we log in as Anita Kennedy, we will be able to see it. So so this was an existing expense report that had not been submitted. Let's try and create a new, totally new report, which we are going to create from scratch. So let's say there's weekly travel. When we create an item, if there are any attachments, we can drag and put the attachments, or we can put a link here as well. If there is any other place where this is done, so the first item is done. So the expense report combines multiple items. And this is the itemization. Itemization is the day wise breakup that you will get. Like this is now 1 day. Suppose I say it's for 5 days. So it shows you the remaining balance also. Out of $350, so far we have consumed $210. So moment we put 70, this amount will also reduce. Now see, it becomes. So so any date that is missing, you can fill that up. So 9th and 8th. So 12, 11, 9, 7, 8. So 10th is missing. So let's create one for 10. That will consume our $70. Oh. So this was how many are there? 3, 4, 5. Oh, 5 are already there. So no need the sixth one. So the remaining balance is 0. So we have created this. You can say save and close. So this is the total expense that we are going to ask for reimbursement. 485 airfare, 350 hotel. So see, now both of them have gone to the manager for approval. So we'll now log in as the manager. Okay. And on the sidebar that you see here, you get the different things that the person needs. Okay. And let's say the employee also needs a cash advance. So you can request a cash advance. Okay. So this also got submitted. So we'll log in as Anita Kennedy. So these are the expenses that have come to the person. So when I click on one expense report submitted by Casey, now here it says these are the parallel stages whom it will go to, any one of them can approve. So provided there is more than one person who is assigned. So once this is approved, it will be done. Let's review the next one. Okay. Once we are okay with all the details, we can approve this too. This is the cash advance. So all our three reports are now approved. If I go back to the notification again, it will show me the refreshed view. So those are now gone. So I'll sign out. I'll log in as the finance person. So now I'll go to the expenses, then go to auditing. So we had two types of things. We had submitted a cash advance. Let's take a look at the cash advance first. Let's do something. Let's make this. So Casey Brown, we are going to look up his. So this one, it's pending the auditor's approval. So we'll have to review that. Okay. So after reviewing, if we find that, okay, everything is fine, we'll approve. It goes. If there is any changes, I can reduce this amount. So due date, let's make it today itself. So let's search for it now again. So now it's ready for payment. All right. Now let's take a look at the one that we submitted as an expense report. And we'll do it for Casey Brown again. Let's see, is it assigned? Yes. Brown. Both of them are ready for payment. Now, in case I want to audit it, I will say add to audit list. Otherwise, I can let it go. Okay. Now, there is a feature here which talks about original receipt package date. Okay. If I now try to do any of these actions like, save or anything like that, I can do it. Okay. And receipt package, this is where uh, usually people who are traveling, salespeople or consulting people, what they would do is they would bunch their expense report, take a printout, and put it all together, put it into an envelope, and send it over to the company for reimbursement. So once that is done, this is where the packet check-in date comes in. So when the packet comes, so there could be a scan also, or there could be a package receipt date when the expenses were received. Most companies, you know, globally, they are very particular about paying expenses as the earliest. So employee expenses, all companies usually follow a particular timeline, 25 days, 30 days, or 15 days. So within that, expenses are reimbursed and transferred. So what we have done, we created an expense report, we logged in as the auditor, we reviewed it, and we approved it. Now, after this is done, we'll have to process the expense reimbursement and cash advances. So for that, these reports will go to payables as invoices. So let's do that. So you can have two separate processes running, one for expense reimbursement, one for expense report, another for cash advances. So when we say expense reports, we submit it. So this is the expense report cash advance request. So let's also submit the second one as well. So once this is done, you can see this and you can see the output as well. So it tells you the numbers that have been processed. So many invoices were fetched and so many payment requests and so many invoices created. Okay. So we will now go to payables and check out these invoices. So if we go to payables dashboard or invoices, we'll be able to see the dashboard summary. See, recent is 33 in the last 24 hours. See here, there's Casey Brown's advance 1000, and the 835 1162 from Casey Brown. Okay. Now, once this comes into payables, the rest of the processes are similar as far as payroll processing is concerned. Invoice is there, we'll have to validate it, account it, send it for payment. So if I look at this advance, this is the ADV invoice number. Okay, so the type is the payment request. So right now it's not validated. If we want to validate it, and this invoice is now validated. If I want to do the accounting, account in draft, and we can view the accounting. So the expense and the liability accounts are created. This is in draft mode. If I do post to ledger, it will get posted to ledger as well. Okay. Similarly, if I look at my invoice also, this is the $835 invoice. If you notice, the date here is the 12/6/17 terms date because it came in today. The attachment has also come in. If you remember, we had put that best deal as the attachment. And the attachment actually by default downloads. So it downloaded here. And all the accounting dates are entered default. The last open, nearest open date. Okay. Now, if I want to do the validation, it's now validated. Okay.
There's no tax implication on this reimbursement, right?
There's no
Tax implications.
no, because these are mostly reimbursements. So whatever the expense has been done, it's being reimbursed.
What
Tax.
suppose some of the employee has paid in behalf of company and then he's reclaiming the reimbursement.
Yeah, in most of these cases, he would have paid, right? And he is reclaiming. So what they do
Now
is,
this is basically actually travel purpose. What you have told us.
hmm, hmm,
Just suppose some employee has paid for companies like company by asset.
hmm.
So for asset he has paid due to some urgencies.
Okay, we'll do that.
So in that case, the tax implication will also come, right?
Even in this, there will be tax implication. Hotel stay,
Okay.
tax your rental cars. They will charge
Hmm.
you.
Yeah,
GST is now
obvious.
everywhere. So suppose we are entering an expense that has a tax line. There's no employee record linked with this ID, so it gives an issue. So let's log in as Casey Brown and we can try that out. So if I now go to expenses, and I create a report, so these purposes that you have here under that create item, these should be predefined here.
Okay.
Okay, so let's say there is supplies here and they bought $500 worth of supplies. Now this amount that you see here, this will be the one that will be totally reimbursed over there. Okay,
Okay.
now once we send it over to that to them, there might be a split of $450 of supplies and $50 of tax,
Okay, we'll treat as a reimbursement only. We'll not separately show somewhere.
because from an employee perspective, whether
Yeah.
it is tax or charge, he will be
It
reimbursed.
will be same only. Right.
Only when he goes to the expenses will he see something different. Lot of cases when they do this, they would do it as a do it manually, but doing manually is very painful if there are large number of employees. So rather, when we are doing the setup of these items itself, we can mention whether there is any tax implication or not.
Okay.
So manual aspect is always there. You could, the payables person can go over there based on the invoice and fix the expenses manually. The other option is when we go to this all the tasks that are there. Okay, now this is the setup for all of them. There are tax fields which have to be enabled. So let's say these are the expense report templates, which is basically a collection of your items. So this one is expenses US1. So for each of these items that you see here, there is an expense type. Okay, and these are different expense types that are included. That's the list that we were seeing. Okay, along with that, there are expense fields. Okay, expense location, do you want it? Expense merchant name, do you want it? And if there is any tax implication for that, so you can tag a tax classification code also, which will link up to that particular head. Okay,
Okay.
so if this is there, then the tax will also kick in. Normally when we create any sort of expense reports or any expenses, by default we first create an expense template. The moment we give a template, user can pre-fill these expense types in that template. Okay, so when they choose it, they will get them automatically. For each expense report template, we have the expense type. Then you can also map your card expenses like Amex or your Chase or your different companies have different expense cards that are given out, Sodexo cards and Amex cards and things like that. So you can map them out here. You can say whatever in the card, if they say air, which expense type should it link up to? Companies or people in consulting who travel a lot, there's regular expenses on the MX cards, and over a period of time, there's a huge number of expenses that pile up for each person, and now multiply by so many employees who are traveling. Okay, so you can have different rules regarding receipt requirements also. So you can say anything below $10 or anything below $30, I don't need receipts. Okay. So once this expense report template is done, we can assign these expense report templates to different people, and when they create expenses, they can pick up. Okay. Now there are some expense system options here as well. So whether you want, based on your settings, you will allow uh, options for expense report, whether you want to enable payment method, whether you want to allow reimbursement currency selection, whether you want to enable attachments, whether you want to allow overriding approvers, enable travel, enable recurring expenses, allow password storage in mobile application, enable split allocations. So these are different options that you have. These are the corporate options for the expense report. Okay. And then these are the processing options. So who will be paid when an employee raises expenses? Will it go directly to the card issuer? For example, expense is sending you the expense expenses incurred on the corporate card. Do you pay to the Amex card or do you pay to the employee? Companies have a policy that it could be airfare or it could be some of the bigger one, big items which are paid directly to the which are paid directly to the card, and the smaller ones which the employee may have paid from his pocket or he might have paid because of the due date, it will get paid to the employee directly. And then you have for which specific business unit does it apply. So you can make this apply to one business unit or multiple business unit, the system options. Okay. So once your system option, this is part of your required setup that you have. Okay. So the expense report template is one, system option is another. Next is your approval rules. What sort of approvals you are going to have. This takes you to the BPM. So these are different approval workflows that are enabled. Let's say workflow expense approval. Okay. So who are the assignees? What's the data? Deadlines. Who gets the notifications? Okay. And what sort of notification will they receive? So these are different notification related setups. And finally, you have the access. Gets access. Uh, these are the corporate card issuers. These are the different companies which are issuing the corporate cards. So that's part of the mandatory setup that you might have to do for your expenses in case company is issuing corporate cards. most large companies nowadays do it. So it becomes important to have the cards and the card programs. Like, some companies give foreign exchange cards to employees, Axis Bank card or HDFC card. So it helps them to, manage their forex better, and they don't have to deal with loose cash. They can just upload it into the card remotely as well. So people don't need to carry the cash.
Sir, what all topics are pending for now?
Receivables, fixed assets. Okay. So here you see there are two card issuers. One is Amex, the other is G Capital. So this is the corporate card issuers and what payment methods and stuff like that, which account from the corporate side. And for each corporate card issuer, you can have multiple programs. So G Capital procurement card, G Capital Amex travel card. So procurement cards are for buying items from different places, and against that card, it could be reimbursed directly for miscellaneous expenses. And once the Amex expenses come in, how are they going to be uploaded into the system? So it tells you how they are going to match up with your cards. In some cases, you can create these expense reports also directly based on the card expenses and how they are being set up. So once you import the card transactions, your expenses will also get created. So what is the transaction summary mapping? You specify all the mappings, and you also specify your company account. Okay, this is your expense clearing account. Among the non-mandatory ones, you can go through this if there is anything. Most of them are pretty intuitive. Or policies.
Policies and templates are there.
Uh, um, Expense manage policies. So these are the cash advance and policies, authorization policies, and you can manage policies by expense category. So what are the policies, whether you want cash advances, whether you want to enable advances or not? In this case, for this is applicable for all the business units. Methods of applying advances, number of unapplied advances at a time, you can have only one. Maximum amount allowed per advance. What is the prefix it's going to be for the report creation expense? Report creation. Authorizations, whether authorization is required or not. Um, it is only at the header level, individual line level not required. And budgetary control, whether you're going to check for funds, display warning to user or not, and whether it will apply to any specific business units. So for business unit specific ones, you click on the business unit and you will see the business unit specific limits that you can specify. So for US 1 business unit, it is set to yes. But for all business units, default it is set to no. And only the ones that you need, where expenses, advance expenses will be paid, advances will be given. For them, you specify it to yes. Authorizations, enable authorizations, attach authorizations. Okay. And once this is done, so you can have these policies by expense category also. Individual category wise, you can specify what your policies are going to be. Lot of companies, they require whenever you're submitting a food bill for reimbursement, you have to specify who were the employees who attended that dinner or the lunch. So these are basically, when we say policies, these are basically the controls that you have against that particular item. Okay. Another thing that I forgot to show you was for each of these expense categories that you have here now. This is the default account code that it gets mapped to. You see this account?
Yeah.
So when your expense accounting your expense accounting is done, that is when this account will be linked against that particular account. So each of them will have a account code which may be different, which can be same. So for example, dinner, this, they're all putting it under 60521. See, this one is 60513. So this particular line will be charged to 60513. Now, this auditing that you are having, you could have a group of employees who could belong to a audit list. So due to various issues, you might have a list of employees who are getting audited. For example, you could have people, who have submitted incorrect expenses, policy violations are there, people who have put in incorrect or beyond their limits expenses. So by default, you can put them in an audit list, and based on the audit list, how many days they will remain on the audit list? 60 days. So if you don't see any violations, you can then remove them after 60 days, and their expenses will be automatically, could be processed automatically after the manager approves. In case you find that they still continue to have variations or violations, you can again put them on the audit list. So these are the audit rules that you can have by templates and by the expense types. So which expense it applies to, and what is the expense type amount, what is the rule. So anything which is like 3,000, you're going to audit. If there's $3,000 of entertainment, so there could be a cumulative amount as well, or it could be a single amount. And it applies to the US1 business unit. Expense audit list membership, cash advance, authorization policies. So these are different policies, similar policies that you have for your cards, for your expenses. Okay.
Okay.
Have a look at these. Okay,
Yes, sir.
Rakesh.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and see if if there is any further questions, we can take that in the next class.
Sure, no problem.
Then we'll stop here today.
Yeah. So what will be next topic?
Once this is done, we'll go